The cops stopped the wrong rider. Minutes later, 50 soldiers in Humvees rolled in, led by a stern captain. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind that feels timeless, where the world seems to slow down and everything is in its place. 24-year-old Malik, the embodiment of youthful energy and calm, cruised through the peaceful streets of a small town located just outside a military base. His motorcycle, a matte black beast, rumbled gently under him, purring with power but not demanding attention. The world around him was a canvas of tranquility stretching out in every direction. The soft hum of the engine was the only sound that broke the silence. With his helmet securely fastened, Malik kept his focus on the open road ahead. His military ID was tucked safely in his back pocket, an everyday reminder of his role and duty. Music flowed softly in his ears, just loud enough to provide a soundtrack for the journey. It was his one day off, his rare escape from the confines of military life. A moment of peace, a break from the chaos of duty. The town passed by slowly, the quiet streets contrasting the frantic world he often navigated. Malik was not just a soldier, he was a person, someone who cherished these fleeting moments of stillness. However, as he glided down the street, something was about to disrupt this calm, something he couldn't have predicted. The flash of blue and red lights broke through the serenity. A pair of local cops appeared behind him, their sirens blaring. Malik, still relaxed, slowed his bike and pulled over to the curb. The day, which had been nothing more than a peaceful ride, was quickly changing into something darker. As Malik eased into the leak, he noticed the cops approaching with urgency in their steps, their faces masked with suspicion. The first officer, a gruff man in his mid-30s, snapped his command at Malik. "A license and registration," he barked, his tone demanding, filled with authority. Malik's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the officer's impatience. Before he could even respond, the second officer, standing off to the side, glared at him, eyes narrowing with disbelief. "You steal this bike?" The question was sharp, accusatory. No way a guy like you owns a ride like this. The insinuation hung in the air, an undercurrent of prejudice, an assumption born from nothing more than Malik's appearance and the bike he rode. Malik stood there, unfazed, feeling the weight of the moment. He knew this was a routine he had never signed up for. He knew how it felt to be underestimated, to be judged at a glance, but he didn't show it. Keeping his voice steady, he responded, "It's mine. My military ID is in my back pocket." He reached for his back pocket as if the words themselves weren't enough to clear the confusion. But the officers weren't listening. They didn't care. Instead, they moved in aggressively, yanking his helmet off and cuffing him. One officer holding him while the other aggressively ordered him to the curb. The accusations flew without substance, the charge now being resisting arrest. The officers ignored his words, dismissing him as just another suspect, a nameless face in their routine. As they pushed him to the ground, the locals began to gather, cameras in hand, ready to record. The world around Malik seemed to slow, and he could feel the weight of the eyes upon him. Yet he remained calm as he could, but his mind was already calculating his next steps. He wasn't going to let this moment define him, but he knew there was something he could do. He sighed quietly, his breath a steady rhythm despite the mounting tension, and activated his watch's comms. With a low, controlled voice, he spoke into it. A code read Unit 7. The calm that Malik held on the outside was matched by the rapid response from his military unit. As the officers continued to argue amongst themselves, oblivious to the bigger storm that was about to hit, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble ever so slightly. 10 minutes, that's how long it took. It felt like an eternity to those who were unaware of what was coming. And then it happened. An unmistakable sound filled the air. The deep rumble of 50 Humvees rolling down the street, their tires growling as they chewed through the asphalt, their sheer power creating a wave of anticipation. The officer's eyes widened as the first Humvee appeared, kicking up dust, its heavy body rumbling with authority. The flag on its side fluttered violently in the wind as the convoy approached. There was no mistaking it now. This wasn't just any response. This was a military operation. As the Humvees came to a halt, soldiers dressed in full gear spilled out, their movements synchronized, precise, and purposeful. They formed a protective perimeter around Malik, standing in unyielding formation. The officers, who had moments before humiliated him, now stood on the sidelines, watching as Malik was shielded by men and women in uniform who knew exactly who he was. At the front of the soldiers stood Captain Elena Cruz, her presence commanding and fierce. Her eyes locked onto the officers as she strode forward, unwavering, every step echoing the authority she held. The officers, who had once been so confident in their assumptions, now stood frozen, unsure of what to do as Captain Cruz approached them. She stopped in front of them, her gaze cold and sharp. Without hesitation, she flashed her military badge, the symbol of her rank and power. "Officers," she said, her voice steady but filled with a chilling calm. "You've just detained a decorated special ops engineer on federal leave." Her words cut through the tension like a knife. His unit builds battlefield tech that protects men like you." The officers were stunned. Their faces paled, the full weight of their mistake beginning to sink in. The first officer, who had been so quick to assume, stammered, We didn't know. You." His words faltered, the realization hitting him hard. Captain Cruz didn't waste another moment. She turned to Malik, who was still standing tall, his composure unwavering. Sir," she said, her voice softening but still firm, "you're safe now." Malik nodded once, his body relaxing as the cuffs were removed. His eyes met the officer's for the first time, not with anger but with the quiet strength that came from knowing his worth. The soldiers around him saluted him, the respect in their movements evident. The man who had been humiliated, the one they had tried to demean, was the very person responsible for the machines that protected the lives of countless people. His work, his sacrifices were part of a bigger mission. As the soldiers began to disperse and the Humvees rolled out, the town returned to its silence, but something had changed. The onlookers, who had been silently filming, now lowered their cameras. They had witnessed something far more significant than just a confrontation. They had seen the power of respect, the force of responsibility, and the unspoken bond that exists between those who serve their country. The officers, still standing, had their heads down. They had been given a lesson in humility. They had misunderstood who Malik was, but his family in uniform had just shown them what real respect looked like. Malik, once again alone in the street, got back on his bike, his eyes steady, his grip firm. As the engine roared back to life, the town would never be the same. The lesson had been learned. Respect wasn't just something given. It was earned through actions, and today, Malik had shown the world exactly what it meant to be a true hero.